Hello, I'm Betty Hollister, Public Information Manager with the Regional Flood Control District, and welcome to this history lesson edition of the Flood Channel. As we look to the future of flood control, we continue to make progress minimizing the flood risk for Clark County residents. So as we move forward in our mission, we thought it would be a good idea to take a look back at some of the history of flooding in the valley and show you just how far we've come in protecting you and your family from devastating floods. So if you could hit that rewind button on your remote, we'll take a look back at a storm that hit the valley in July of 1999.
The water rushed down, looking like a muddy Niagara Falls. Parts of the valley that are normally dry were now raging rivers, the rolling water destroying everything in its path.
As the heavy rain started to descend upon the valley and the first reports of flooding were received, we quickly realized that this was a very great storm and potentially one of the greatest storms to hit this area.
The rainfall was intense. Most of it fell within an hour and a half. Some places recorded more than 1.5 inches of rain in just 30 minutes. By the time it stopped, parts of the valley were soaked with more than 3 inches of rain. It may not sound like a lot, but because Las Vegas has poor soil and lots of erosion, that amount of rain causes drastic flooding.
If that same rain were to fall in almost any other part of the country, it would not cause the same problems that we have here.
Channels and basins like these kept the floodwaters out of many areas of town. The Regional Flood Control District has finished 1/3 of its master plan. Many say if those parts weren't finished, the whole valley would have been one big lake.
We estimate that the damages would have been 4 to 5 times greater if it wasn't for what the Flood Control District has implemented with the entities to date.
The flood caused more than $20 million in damage, but without the current flood control measures, it easily could have topped $100 million.
I'm just very thankful that at least about 25% of what the county and the city's been doing for flood control is complete. Because without even that portion, I wish it had all been done, but if it hadn't have been, we wouldn't have stopped all that water in the water basins far to the west of town.
This area along Duck Creek Wash was hit hard. The water washed away the ground and knocked down these walls.
This is the road that went across, and you can see what happened to the road. Completely washed away, the force of the water.
But MJ Harvey and these neighbors know it could have been worse. The Flood Control District built this bridge so residents would have a road out if the waters got too high. And these rocks were just recently placed here to help reinforce the natural channel.
I shudder to think. I really do. I shudder to think because there was no protection here before.
But until the Flood Control District makes all the improvements, these neighbors won't feel safe when it rains.
Everybody's upset and scared to death. What will happen in the next time?
The Duck Creek Wash is one of the next areas to be improved, but it will take time and money. Overall, though, the district says the flood proved the current system works. Now it just needs to be completed.
It further reemphasizes in my mind the need for us to continue down the path that we've started down and try to get there as quick as possible.
And everyone will agree, the quicker, the better. Heather Kelly reporting for the Clark County Regional Flood Control District.
Since that storm, the district has more than doubled the flood control network of detention basins, channels, and underground storm drains. In addition, we're currently funding the construction of more than 30 projects all across Clark County. And we'll be back with more on the Flood Channel right after this.
We have all seen the devastation that floods can cause to homes and lives in Clark County. Has your neighborhood or home ever been affected by major storms? Federal flood insurance is a smart and cost-effective investment if you think your home is vulnerable. Some easy-to-understand assessments can help determine if you need flood insurance. Call your insurance agent or call 1-888-CALL-FLOOD or visit the Regional Flood Control District's website for guidance. See if flood insurance makes sense for you.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, I'm MJ Harvey, and I'm chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Regional Flood Control District, and you are watching the Flood Channel.
The 100-year storm in 1999 wasn't the first time our area was hit with massive flooding. In the mid-1980s, after a series of severe storms, Clark County residents voted to tax themselves to pay for flood control improvements. Carrie Ann takes a look back at how the district was created. Every story has a beginning, and for the Flood District, this facility here in North Las Vegas at Craig and I-15 was one of the first projects built to protect families in the area from flooding.
When the district was first formed, through the leadership of Bruce Woodbury, people didn't understand flood control. They were saying, why do we need flood control in the desert? It never rains, and certainly the catastrophic events in the early 80s almost forced the issue. But again, with Bruce's leadership, that started the district, and there were a lot of question marks when the district was first created and we received funding through the quarter-cent sales tax. People were skeptical. I mean, is this another one of those government boondoggles that's just going to create jobs and build things that aren't necessary? But it became apparent very quickly the mandatory need for these type facilities.
In the past, there was no unified approach to controlling floods here. It was all piecemeal. And floodwaters do not recognize entity boundaries. It just takes the path of least resistance. So back in the early 80s, after some major flooding, there was a need recognized by the local elected people to go to Carson City and get laws changed to allow us for the creation of the district.
It started out as a vision. It became a reality. And when the results started coming up, when people started seeing how we could literally control floodwaters and protect families, protect property, the mission became entrenched. It's become part of the culture at the district now. It's a very simple mission, but so critically important. And it's simply to go out there, educate the people as far as what flash flooding can do in the desert, and protect them, protect their lives, protect their property. And that remains the foundation of our organization.
Some of the first projects that were built were projects along the Las Vegas Wash, on the western trib of the Las Vegas Wash, Van Buskirk area in the county, near Pecos and Flamingo, a community that flooded bad all the time with little rain. So we took care of those hot areas first while looking at the whole regional picture.
There's an acceptance now, and that success, that incremental success as we build out our system, builds the credibility and changes that perception where people have become far more aware. And certainly seeing things built by government that are successful and they work and they serve a purpose builds that confidence in the public. The Charleston Underpass was always our nemesis. It was literally the poster child. Anytime, certainly when a storm hit in the area, it backed up, shut down traffic, just made a mess of not only the underpass itself, but the business corridors, the surrounding residential areas. But now, because of the facilities that have been put in place, we've had some major storm events, and that has remained bone dry, which more than anything else, it's become symbolic of the success of the district. That remains probably the highlight of my tenure on the board, because it was such a spot in the community that everyone knew if it rained, that the first picture on the news that night would be the Charleston Underpass.
As we look into the future, we have to look to the past first. And in 20 years, we've completed 75 detention basins and over 450 miles of channel and underground storm drain that are protecting not only areas within the Las Vegas Valley, but projects that are down in Laughlin all the way up to Mesquite, 90 miles south and 90 miles north of here. But with that said, we still have 30 years to go. We are building these as quick as we can, and that's why it's so important to get our flood safety message out to everybody in this community. And I think that's one thing when you look at the past to the present to the future. We've really taken leaps and bounds in getting our flood safety message out.
Well, when we started out back in the mid-'80s, I think if we talked back then that we'd spend $1.2 billion and 75 detention basins and 450 miles of channels, people would say, wonderful, we're done. What a success story that would be if we were talking retrospectively. But today, with the growth, we're playing catch up. We are keeping as close to the growth curve as possible, And right now, we think we're only halfway there. We anticipate over the next 15 to 20 years building out an additional $1 billion plus in facilities and trying to serve what then was probably 500,000 people, upwards of 2 million today, and could very well approach 3 million. So we are constantly in motion. I mean, there's no time for us as an agency to slow down. There is no slowdown. As long as that growth is there, we are able to, through our efficiencies and through the partnerships with the member agencies, we're able to continually build out the system, and that's what's critically important, that we don't fall too far behind.
I've been with the district 20 years, almost exactly 20 years today. And I always look at what happens when I leave and some of my staff leave. I think that the documents and the procedures that we put in place as far as our master plans and updating them every 5 years, our regulations, our criteria that's been in place since '91, those are all the foundation for whoever takes over in the future. We've looked at twice now the benefit versus cost of us implementing these projects for the future. And it's for every dollar we spent, this community will reap $2 in benefits. So I think the reason we're here, the foundation is there, and that somebody can pick up these pieces and run with it in the future to continue to complete that master plan and meet our mission and achieve our vision.
I've always felt that our success will be measured not today with what we've done, and perhaps not with those residents that are living here today, but when we look out 15 or 20, 25 years down the road, when ultimately we can build out our system, it's that community that will look back to 2008 and ultimately back to 1986 and say, thanks to Bruce Woodbury, thanks to the people at the Flood Control District, we have created this infrastructure that gives us a safe community, protects us from what used to be devastation, loss of lives, millions of dollars of property damage. So our report card will come a couple decades down the road when people are able to look back and say, it was a success story.
Currently, the district has 75 detention basins and more than 450 miles of channel and underground storm drains. Those facilities, like this news channel here at Lamb in the 215, help safely pass water through the area and away from homes and businesses. Now, while the district has accomplished a lot through these construction projects, there's still a long way to go. The district's story is only halfway finished. Betty?
Coming up, we'll take a look back at a devastating storm that hit our valley in the summer of 2003.
Whenever you come to water in a roadway, think. If you think you can get across, you can't. If you think driving fast will get you through it, it won't. If you think it's not that deep, it is. Whenever you come to water, think. Then think again.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, hon. How was your day?
I was good. Nothing special. How about you?
Good. Productive.
Good.
Oh, I bought us flood insurance today.
You did what? What do you think we're made of money? I mean, what the heck? Should I just go out and buy a boat and maybe an SUV to pull it around? Oh, okay.
In Clark County, floods can strike at any time, and not just in flood zones. Flooding can cost thousands of dollars in damage, destroying your home and its contents. Do you have flood insurance?
Hi, I'm County Commissioner Larry Brown, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
Welcome back to the Flood Channel. Over the years, you've probably heard about the devastation caused by severe storms in our area. Images in the media of people stranded on top of cars with emergency workers pulling people to safety are realities of how dangerous these storms can be. One such storm hit our valley in the summer of 2003, and it's something a local family will never forget.
Flooding in southern Nevada. Perhaps you've seen it on television, read about it in the newspaper, or maybe even experienced it firsthand. But many residents here are new to the area and unaware of how life-threatening floods can be. Recorded reports about dangerous floods in the community date back to 1905, which is the first year a newspaper was published in southern Nevada. Back then, when storms led to excessive flooding, they crippled communication and telegraph wires and shut down roads and railroad tracks, making travel almost impossible. From those first published accounts to present day, southern Nevada has experienced scores of storms that had devastating impacts to families, their homes, and businesses. A major storm in 1949 was dubbed by the newspaper as one of the worst in history, causing flooding from Las Vegas to 90 miles north in Mesquite. Another devastating storm was recorded in 1975 as floodwaters slammed into the valley, bringing death and destruction. More than 300 cars at Caesar's Palace were submerged, many piled on top of each other by the power of the floodwater, while others were found miles downstream from the Strip. Storms in the early 80s resulted in several deaths, millions of dollars in damages, and the creation of the Regional Flood Control District in 1985. More recently, in 1999, a 100-year storm left many parts of the valley looking like raging rivers. More than 150 people were rescued by emergency crews, most of them stranded motorists. The storm resulted in more than $20 million in damage to public property. In 2003, another 100-year storm dumped 3 inches of rain in 90 minutes in the Northwest Valley. Both helicopter and swiftwater rescues were performed to save trapped motorists. Several homes in the area were also severely damaged. And just 2 years ago, winter storms in early 2005 brought heavy rain and snowmelt, which caused the Virgin and Muddy rivers to overflow their banks, flooding homes and businesses in Mesquite and Overton. While most severe storms were recorded between July and September, over the past 100 years, flash flooding in Clark County has happened in every month of the year. Through construction and education, the district continues its mission to make southern Nevada and its residents safer from flood emergencies.
I walked into my home and I just stood there. And there's 2.5 to 3 feet of water coming down into our property like the Colorado River. It looked like there was a river right outside of our home. The water, the force of the water broke through my front door, broke through the garage, and the water immediately started filling the house. And just the initial reaction of walking into your home and finding everything caked in mud, water up the sides of the walls, and it took my breath away to see all the damage, and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. You don't know how to react. I remember just standing there and crying for a couple hours before my adrenaline kicked in and said, I've got to start getting stuff out of the mud. The very first thing I did was call my insurance company. I assumed that my homeowner's insurance was going to cover it. Wrong. I still, the whole time, look back and think, if I had only had the insurance, if I had only had the wherewithal to take out flood insurance. It was inexpensive, and it would have saved me $50,000. I didn't let my daughter come home for 4 days because her room was destroyed. She stayed away. I couldn't let her come home and see what had been destroyed in her room.
History has shown us that while summer is a time when major storms are more likely to happen, we've experienced severe storms in every month of the year. We continue to make progress with flood protection, but we also want to remind you that flood insurance is a very cost-effective way to protect your home and belongings. We'll be back with more on the Flood Channel right after this.
I want to show you some pictures your parents probably wouldn't want you to see. Pictures of parents making big mistakes. Here's someone's dad doing something foolish. He's actually trying to drive through a flooded street. Here's another. And another. Every summer we get flash floods, and every summer the same thing happens. And hey, if all this water can do this to a car, imagine what it'd do to a kid. Look, don't be foolish. Flash floods kill. Tell your parents.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District.
I'm Agent Smith.
I'm Agent Jones.
And we're back busting people who pollute Clark County.
Oh, sir, you're gonna have to come with us.
What have I done now? Sir, did you know by washing your car at home puts chemicals and trash into storm drains?
Really?
Car washes recycle water and they don't pollute Lake Mead.
Oh.
Is Clark County your home?
Yeah.
And you don't like trash in your home?
No.
Then don't trash Clark County. It's our home too.
Okay.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
I'm Agent Smith.
And I'm Agent Jones.
And you're watching the Flood Channel.
Welcome back to the Flood Channel. Now let's take a look back at two intense storms that struck our valley in August 2003 and 2007. Both storms were very similar in size and intensity, but because of the flood control improvements we've made, they had very different results.
Comparing apples to oranges is a saying used to indicate significant differences between items or events. Our county was hit with similar storms in August of 2003 and August of 2007, with quite different outcomes as a result of what has